and welcome. I'm Kriti Mehta and you're watching Deep Dive. Washington, D.C. is reeling after a chaotic and violent attack just steps away from the White House. 2 National Guard members were ambushed and shot in broad daylight. One has been declared dead. The other is in critical condition. The suspect, identified as a 29-year-old Rahmanullah Lankanwal, arrived in the U.S. from Afghanistan in September 2021 under Operation Allies Welcome, the Biden-era program that evacuated vulnerable Afghans after the Taliban's return. The fallout has been immediate and dramatic. The U.S. has suspended all immigration processing for Afghans, and the political storm building around this incident could reshape the national security debate for months to come. President Donald Trump wasted no time. He called the shooting an act of terror and declared his intent to remove foreigners from any country who does not belong here. Listen into his statement first.
The animal who perpetrated this atrocity pays the steepest possible price. I can report tonight that based on the best available information, the Department of Homeland Security is confident that the suspect in custody is a foreigner who entered our country from Afghanistan, a hellhole on earth. He was flown in by the Biden administration in September 2021 on those infamous flights that everybody was talking about, people who shouldn't even be in our country. We must now re-examine every single alien who has entered our country from Afghanistan under Biden, and we must take all necessary measures to ensure the removal of any alien from any country who does not belong here or add benefit to our country. If they can't love our country, we don't want them.
And this was not just rhetoric. It was an unmistakable escalation, one that taps into Trump's long-standing criticism of Operation Allies Welcome and the broader Afghanistan withdrawal. Now, the suspect has been accused of shooting 2 National Guard members near the White House, entered the U.S. through Operation Allies Welcome, the Biden-era program that evacuated vulnerable Afghans after the 2021 withdrawal. Officials say that Rahmanullah Lankanwal arrived in September 2021, later applied for asylum in 2024 and received it the following year under the Trump administration. More than 190,000 Afghans have resettled in the U.S. through Operation Allies Welcome and its successor, Enduring Welcome, though many arrived with only temporary status. Trump is now demanding a review of all Afghan arrivals, claiming Biden allowed unvetted foreigners into the country. UNCIS has halted Afghan immigration processing pending a vetting review. But Trump's opposition has always centered on 3 pillars. First, the collapse of Afghanistan under Biden to Trump and his allies, the rapid fall of Kabul, and the chaos surrounding evacuation flights symbolized a colossal failure of U.S. leadership. Operation Allies Welcome, in his telling, is part of that failure. Second, claims of insufficient vetting. Even though DHS insisted vetting was rigorous, multi-layered, involving intelligence, law enforcement, biometrics, and counter-terrorism checks, Trump has repeatedly argued the opposite. The thousands were allowed into the country without proper security review. The DC shooting has become Exhibit A in his argument. And the final point being Trump's broader immigration doctrine. Operation Allies Welcome, a large-scale humanitarian evacuation, runs entirely counter to that philosophy. With Afghan immigration processing halted, tens of thousands of families, interpreters, and former allies remain in limbo. The review of vetting protocols could take weeks or longer, and politically, the shooting has opened the door for a nationwide debate over whether Afghan evacuees should remain in the U.S., whether they pose a security risk, and whether Operation Allies Welcome should be reformed or dismantled entirely. To to understand this and why is it happening now, let's look backwards, all the way to 2001. Now, the attack on the United States, the US-led invasion to topple the Taliban, the long grinding insurgency, nearly 20 years of casualties, counter-terrorism, and those operations and the shifting strategies. By 2021, after trillions spent and thousands of lives lost, the US withdrew. The Afghan government collapsed. The Taliban returned to power. And suddenly, the people who had worked for the US for 2 decades were targets overnight. This is where Operation Ally's Welcome came from and the political battles that we see today. The immigration freeze, the shooting fallout, Trump's demands are the direct aftershocks of the longest war in US history. The National Guard shooting has reopened a painful wound, not just for the families of the injured soldiers, but for a country still divided over what the Afghan war meant and what responsibility the US still holds. It is the story of how a 20-year-old war continues to shape America's politics, its security, and its identity, even after the last troops left Kabul. Now, joining us in this discussion is Hashim Vadyatar, who's the Director of Program at the Institute of Current World Affairs in Washington, D.C., and the former spokesman and program officer for the United Nations in Afghanistan. I extend you a very warm welcome and thank you for joining us here at NewsX World. Now, my first question is very clear. How do you assess the immediate decision to halt Afghan immigration processing after the D.C. shooting?
Thank you very much. Before that, it's very important to say that I and the Afghan community across the United States of America, we strongly condemn this barbaric and cowardly act happened the other day in Washington, D.C., the capital of the United States of America. And we condemn this in strongest terms, and our condolences to the one who lost her life, and our prayers with the one who is still going through procedures, and we wish him a quick recovery. We, the Afghans in the United States, we strongly support the government of the United States of America, and we stand ready to support the government in any ways and cooperate with them in finding out the reason behind this barbaric and cowardly act that this guy did the other day in Washington, D.C. The Afghans in the United States, they are very hard workers. Majority of them are having businesses and well-educated and paying taxes to the government, and they have a peaceful life in the United States, and they love this country and they want to stay because these Afghans have kept, through very hard ways, have come to the United States from the extremism and terrorism, and they are living now in the United States. So this 1% never ever represent any community. This was this terrorist act or this extremist act belongs to only to this person who committed this act. Now, coming to what's happening now is that the Afghan community in the United States, they are very concerned with what is going on nowadays. The green card holders who have come to the United States, majority of them helped the government of the United States when they had intervention in Afghanistan. In many ways, they helped the government of the United States. They are living in the United States. So now they have a big concern what will be happening to them, not only with themselves, the children and women who are here. And this is not only the concern that they have about the deportation, but the concern is also, what's going on back in Afghanistan, the ban of girls and women from schools, universities, from work, and everything else that we all know back in Afghanistan. We all know about that. So this has turned like a trauma among the Afghan communities in the United States of America.
All right, and do you believe Operation Ally's Welcome has been fairly characterized in the current political debate?
What do you mean by that?
The Biden era program that welcomed all these Afghan refugees and now Trump's complete opposition to that program. Do you think it's
Well,
been...
first of all, yeah.
Please go ahead.
Yeah, first of all, let's be very, very clear. Like the Afghans in the United States, they really want that the immigrants, refugees who come to the United States to go through vetting process. That is what we definitely support. And definitely the Afghans in the United States by no means want and by no means wanted that there has to be like open doors and open borders, like every person get into the United States, including criminals. That is not what the Afghans want. There has to be a legal process for the refugees and immigrants coming into the United States. They can be Afghans, they can be non-Afghans, they can be from anywhere. That is one thing. What happened in 2021, that was a situation happened ad hoc, and definitely we wish that at that time, if there was any vetting process, that would be very, very helpful. Okay. Also moving forward, if there is a vetting process to make sure that no criminals, no terrorists, no extremists get into the United States. That is what we definitely support. But what happens right now and what the government stand is, my concern and the Afghans' concern is that this would affect thousands of Afghans who are stranded either in Afghanistan or in a third country, in a nightmare, in difficult situation. They have gone through years and years. Now, a lot of them interviews are scheduled, but they don't know what will happen to their interviews and what will happen next to them, to their wives, and to their children, and to their daughters who cannot pursue school in Afghanistan. And time flies, and they are way behind their schools and education. Afghans are hard workers, they're studying, a lot of them in the United States are well educated, and those children and girls who are now left behind schools and university, they really want to get into the United States and want to continue their education, and they want to pursue their higher education and help themselves and help the United States and the world.
All right, now the recent Afghan arrivals are fearing that their futures in the US is in jeopardy. What option is really left for them now?
Well, they do not have the options because they do not have the power of options. The options are with the government of the United States. Their option has been to live peacefully, to work in the United States hardly and pay taxes to the government. A lot of these Afghans have businesses in the United States, and a lot of them are well educated in the United States. And they defend this country, they love this country, that is their choice. Other than these choices, they do not have any other choices. The choices are with the government of the United States, and these Afghans are fully ready to cooperate and help the government in any way to find out the reason of this barbaric and coward act that this guy did in Washington, D.C., the capital of the United States.
All right, I would have loved to take some more questions from you, but that's all the time that I have for you. Thanks, Mr. Wadyar, for joining us here at NewsX World. And with that, viewers, it's a wrap on Deep Dive, but do stay tuned to NewsX World for more international news updates from across the world.